What's up, everybody? It has been a while. We are back on the Casual Combat Podcast. My name is Nelson Baker. I'm here with my co-host, Cal Gerber, and this is the start of Season 2. Now, Cal, what's up? How you been doing?
Good. Just keeping on in school. Got a year left in chiropractic school, so just been moving on with life, staying busy.
Yeah, so obviously, we've been gone a while, so I felt like the purpose of this episode was to get everybody re-engaged with the podcast. I know we're going to be scrapping for views just like kind of when we started, but we've already got the Twitter page up and going. Our website will be more active now. Hopefully we can get our journalist, my brother Nolan Baker, writing some more articles. But yeah, life gets hectic and we are humans. And once you get away from it for a little while, I think it just gets harder and harder to keep back at it. But everything has kind of toned down in our lives and it's time to get back to it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well, just had kind of a crazy summer. I had some board exams. Mm-hmm. Mr. Baker here got married.
I did. I'm a married man. The last time you all saw me in the podcast, I was a bachelor, and now I got one of those bad boys.
Good old days.
That was actually, I think, the only time that Cal and I have seen each other since the end of the podcast. Season 1, I think, was my wedding.
I believe so.
Yeah, we thought about recording an episode in person, but that was also at 4 a.m. On my bachelor party, so that obviously didn't come to fruition.
That episode would have been money.
That episode would have been the best on record, but maybe we'll film that still in the future yet. But yeah, man, I mean, it's been fun. We've both stayed completely up to date on the UFC world and the MMA world in general. We just haven't been podcasting, haven't really been writing about it. But there's a lot to talk about, especially from last weekend with UFC 266. Going down. Volkanovski versus Ortega was absolutely wild, but we'll talk about some of that later. And we've got some pretty good fights on the fight night coming up. So, like I said, we've got a lot to talk about, and we're going to try to keep this season shorter episodes, try to keep them to a half hour, rather than the hour or 50 minutes that we had previously been doing. We're going to try out some different content, hopefully get some more fighter interviews, not only fighter interviews, but coaches and other personnel in MMA. I know we've been in talks with a lot of people, and like I said, life gets ahead of you. We've kind of lost a little bit of those contacts, but I'm sure that those will come back. All right. Yeah. So first things first, as is tradition with our episodes, especially the first episode of a season. What beer are you drinking, Cal?
I have it's called Modern Times by Mythic Worlds. It's a hazy Galaxy IPA, and I think we should rate these out of 10 probably on here every time we try them. Maybe try a new beer.
I will caution you that we need to use that 10 sparingly. Because 10 is
like just Miller Lite probably.
10, yeah, the only 10 in my book is Miller Lite.
So it's pretty hop forward, pretty strong. I'm going to give this like a 3 out of 10, but I will drink this and pretend to enjoy it throughout the episode.
All right. Good to know. I probably won't ever buy that beer if it's a 3 out of 10. What I am drinking, and it will most certainly be flipped on the playback of this, but it is a Lagunitas Super Cluster, and it is called a Citra hopped Mega IPA. And let's give it a taste. I've already tasted it a little bit, but let's pretend like this is my first drink. Yeah, it tastes like dirt. But I like it for some reason. That's kind of how it goes with IPAs. Nobody actually likes how they taste, but you kind of do like it in a weird way.
This one just kind of keeps stinging me in the back corners of my mouth every time I drink a little bit of it. It's kind of like,
yeah. You kind of like that? It's kind of like you like it in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's bad in a good way, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Mine's actually almost gone. I've been nervous drinking, being back in an episode, but that's okay.
Yeah, I hope we're still as smooth on camera as we were when we left off. I'm gonna watch this back and I'll probably see myself all moving around and stuff, but hey, we'll get to it. All right, so let's talk about UFC 266. There were some absolutely wild cards, right? As I've moved, and I still live in the same town that I lived in when we started the podcast, when we did season 1, but I've made new friends in my new town, right? I'm further in my teaching career than I was the last time you all saw me. I've got more friends that are willing to watch MMA with me. So my goal in my friend circle is to expose as many people to MMA and turn them into casuals so that I can have friends to watch fights with. And They're to the point where they know the big names, right? They know enough that they can get excited for the fights. I'm going to call out specifically my buddy Alfonso Bruno, who was a wrestling coach with me, and I know he's going to listen to this episode, so I'll give him kudos. He was prepared for the card. We were at his house. He bought the fights. He was really passionate that he would get the fights on at the right time and be knowledgeable about them. So it's fun to start to have friends that know these things. But man, everybody was so excited. The fight card was hyped to the extreme, and that almost scares me when you have a fight card that is so hyped up as far as the matchups, because there's almost no chance that a card with that much hype will live up to that hype, but this one really did, dude. Starting off with Marlon Moraes versus Merab Dvalishvili, that might have been the best fight of the year had it not been for the main event, which we'll talk about later. All right. Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch it? I know when we spoke about it.
Watch it back. I missed that. I was between bars during that fight. But yeah, I did. I watched it. That's insane, which really more disappointed because I bet on Moraes, and that would have been a nice, he was a plus 210 underdog, and he almost had Merab out, which would have been so beneficial to my betting.
Dude, I think that fight legitimately, I'm going to say, should have been stopped.
Maybe twice,
because Merab was completely out on his feet. However, he was still technically defending himself by just diving into a double and just latching on. If I can remember correctly, that's, I believe, what he did. And then turned around and almost TKO'd him in the same round. That was the craziest round. Like I said, I've almost ever seen if round 3 between Volkanovski and Ortega didn't exist.
Yeah, well, Moraes dropped him twice, didn't he?
Yes.
Like, I feel like if you can drop twice consecutively, like that should almost be like, all right, that's good enough. Like, what do you want to get? I mean, in a normal situation, you don't expect that other guy to ever come back. Do you want to see him get dropped again?
I know it was insane. And Moraes even is fairly competent in jiu-jitsu. I know he's a judo black belt, I believe, and I don't think he has the jiu-jitsu credentials like many UFC fighters, but he's comfortable on the ground. And to see him just get absolutely manhandled, and you know, there is certainly a difference between imposing your will on someone based on what type of grappler you are, right? Jiu-jitsu guys can obviously be very, very dangerous, but jiu-jitsu aces don't always impose their will like wrestlers do. So it was obvious, right? It was no secret that Merab Dvalishvili has a very, very high degree of wrestling, but man, he showed it, and his ground and pound was absolutely insane.
A couple other on the prelims to keep moving, that Chris Dawkis looked really good. And I believe news is that he's going to fight Derek Lewis next. They're working on that for December, maybe.
That fight will have pure nuclear bombs thrown.
So that's a fun one. And then awesome to see Dan Hooker get back to his winning ways. I feel like a lot of people really gave up on him, and we're only, I think, 2 fights removed from when he had an absolute battle with Dustin Poirier, where that fight was as close as could be.
Absolutely. He had a war with Poirier, and then did he win a fight and then fought Chandler?
I believe he fought Chandler next.
Yeah, and I mean, going from almost beating Poirier to then kind of just getting flash knocked out by Chandler, who showed that he could be a title belt holder one day. I mean,
for sure,
Dan Hooker is elite, and showing up on, what was it, 4 days notice to make weight?
Yeah, he had a bunch of problems with his visa, and he
Well, I believe, he had problems with his visa, but he also stepped in on short notice for somebody who popped for COVID. So it was extremely short notice even to fight, I think. I don't know
that one. I don't know if that's true, but
because I didn't remember that fight being announced. But hey, I'm a casual. Maybe I'm wrong. Because I knew his weight was an issue, and I think if it was just visa, I don't know if his weight would be an issue. But again, I don't know. I'm not even going to fact check it. I don't know.
How he got the visa worked out was he was only going to get to Vegas like 24 hours before weigh-ins. So that was the issue, was the lack of time.
Okay. Well, then that all now makes sense. And I clearly made up a story in my head.
He beat a solid fighter who was coming up, and I mean, he just dominated the whole fight, and it was fun to watch. I mean, the Hangman was back.
Yes, the Hangman was back, and we saw a few wrinkles in his game that we hadn't seen before, and that was, we'd seen him wrestle before. I am reluctant to say that we hadn't seen that before, because he is a good wrestler, but it's always been...
It's been a couple of fights.
It's been wrestling facilitated with striking, right? He would capitalize on takedowns once he had rocked a guy and take it to the ground that way. In this fight, he was almost like offensively wrestling. He could hit like a slick, like double leg duck under to the left side that was super, super cool. Like I said, I was watching it with buddies, and in Rochelle, there's no like just fight fans. I was at a wrestling meeting, and so they're all wrestlers. So everybody was oohing and eyeing over the inside trips, over the doubles and stuff. So it was cool to get some wrestling showcase from guys like Hooker, from guys like Murad Blalishvili, from guys like Alex Volkanovski that they could really connect with, right? Because, you know, wrestlers like seeing wrestling. I know a lot of people don't like watching wrestling. I'm not going to use the term because I'm sure some of my students watch this podcast about when wrestlers decide to only wrestle during their fights, but it gets kind of boring. And even as a wrestling purist, I get bored with some of those fights too. So it was nice to see combinations of striking and wrestling.
That is a great segue into Curtis Blades and Jairzinho. It's not fair at heavyweight when you have a guy who is a better athlete and can wrestle, and you have a guy who is strictly a striker. I mean, it takes so much. I mean, that's never going to be a fun fight to watch. Both these guys, I kind of don't know where to go with them in the heavyweight division, because Blades can beat everybody, it seems like, until he gets knocked out by someone. Which I was too nervous to even bet on this fight, because this seemed like Jairzinho seemed like just like the Derek Lewis type of guy. Yep. Francis Ngannou, who's going to knock him out in one punch.
Yep.
But I mean, Blades looked like himself. He looked good. He's getting to his takedowns, ground and pound. I mean, that's what we expect to see every time he fights, pretty much.
Yeah, and I am certainly biased, because not only am I a wrestler that likes to see wrestling and MMA, but I am also from Illinois. And if you watch the fight, and if you've watched Curtis Blades fight before, you see the big Illinois wrestling tattoo right on his arm. So I'm biased. He's kind of a homer. He's a hometown guy. But I truly believe that on any given night, Curtis Blades could legitimately beat anyone in the division and beat them badly.
Yep, I agree completely.
But I don't know if he's been unlucky with the shots that he's taken, or I don't know if he's just susceptible to bombs. But it has seemed like he hasn't been able to take Ngannou out in 2 tries. He was absolutely obliterating Derek Lewis, and then he got flatlined, right? I don't know how many chances you can give the guy, you know, before you start negating his skill, right? I said that about Askren. Obviously, again, a guy that is near my area, a guy that I've, you know, I wouldn't say that I have hung out with him, but a guy that I've met, a guy that I see often. And, you know, he loses one fight, and you say, oh, well, he got caught. And then he loses another fight, and he gets memed, and then he loses to Jake Paul. And it's like, okay, how many times can I go up to bat for you? You know, you start realizing the faults in your own logic, but I still do believe that Curtis Blades could beat anybody at any time.
Yeah. I mean, this was a good win for him. It proved that he could go into there with someone who's a dangerous striker, someone who flatlines people and survive and get a nice dominant win.
Yes.
I really don't know where you go with him in the heavyweight division. He might be kind of held up right now just based on his losses. And I don't know. I wouldn't mind ever watching him fight Cyril Gane, but that's not going to happen anytime soon.
I feel like Cyril Gane almost presents the most difficulty for him.
You think so?
Because Cyril Gane can do a little bit of both. I think Cyril Gane can wrestle. Cyril Gane can certainly wrestle more than Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Francis Ngannou. However, he's not as good of a striker, but I don't know.
I disagree with you here. I think he is maybe the toughest match for Cyril Gane. I think Cyril Gane will probably beat Ngannou by wrestling. I think Curtis Blades is a better wrestler than Cyril Gane. And these are takes, but my thoughts are that if Curtis Blades can out wrestle him, he's beat people who are better strikers than him. That's a really tough win for Cyril Gane.
You know, I think you might have swayed my opinion on that. I think you make some good points. But
I mean, who knows what'll happen? I
mean, I think it's no mystery that you and I are both on the Curtis Blades train. It's just how forward that Curtis Blades train can push forward, right? Not only because he's taken some almost I don't want to say inexcusable, because he's lost to the champ twice and he lost to Derek Lewis, who's an absolute animal. But a guy that has 3 blips in his, I don't want to say recent record, but in the recent past, right? It's hard to keep giving him shots when you've got Ngannou, who's beat him twice. You've got Cyril Gane, who's never lost. You've got John Jones somewhere hanging out there. And you've got Stipe, who's only lost once or I guess twice in the last, 4 or 5 years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to see a path that Curtis Blades could take to a title right now, even if he could beat anybody at any time, right? He's not a very interesting trash talker. He's not a very interesting character as far as promotion is concerned. So I just don't know what the future holds. I think he continues to fight those mid elite level fighters, those Jairzinhos, those Derricks, those, maybe I'm drawing a blank on the old Russian guy, Olenek, right? He's probably past his prime, but those type of guys, because those guys at the top are kind of in a landlock right now.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the heavyweights have been around for a while. The elite ones, at least excluding Cyril Gane. So a lot of them already fought each other. So it's tough to where do you go? Do you fight the same guy? I guess probably you have to eventually.
It is good though that I think the UFC acknowledges this, and I think that's the motion that they're trying to set forward is with getting rid of guys like Alistair Overeem, with getting rid of guys like Junior Dos Santos. I think they're starting that trend, but those were two guys that were relatively easy to dispatch. These guys that are fighting at the top right now, pretty hard to justify cutting them
and winning fights, right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to win.
I could see a Curtis Blades versus a Volkov.
Yeah,
if they haven't already fought. I mean,
Curtis Blades.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure took him down and beat him up.
They already have fought.
It was a fight night. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Anyways, that's enough talk about the Curtis fight. So then we also got Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. That was interesting.
This will be quick, man. Everybody's oohing and eyeing over that fight. And yeah, I was excited to see it. And I'm going to say that Nick Diaz looked like absolute crap. All right. He looked old. He looked out of shape. And it looked like his timing was just straight up off. I will say that he was connecting with some big punches. All right. But that is not a testament, in my opinion, to Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz. I'm sorry. I get mixed up. That's like Robbie looked really bad too.
Yes.
And everybody was oohing and eyeing. And I mean, it was entertaining, I guess. But
my question is Robbie Lawler actually that bad that you can just hit him whenever you want and he refuses to protect himself? Or was Nick Diaz hitting him so soft that he just didn't care? Whatever.
Dude, I don't know. But the kick that Nick Diaz started off with was laughable.
Yeah.
I mean,
like Diego Sanchez type stuff.
Legitimately, it reminded me of Diego Sanchez's flying knee.
Right.
I mean, it was so ugly. And everybody at the place I was at just laughed.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was like hyped up. They were like, yeah, Nick Diaz still got it. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But Robbie looked just as bad.
Yeah. When Nick Diaz, his team asked for it to be moved up to 185, I immediately put $25 on Lawler in a parlay because I'm like, this guy's not even coming in shape. Like, I mean, you saw it. He had a belly on him. I mean,
yeah.
And his interviews the whole week, it seemed like he didn't want to be there. That was just weird.
At the end of the fight, he said, I had it coming. And I know that Nick Diaz is messed up in the head. I know that that's not a strange thing for him to say, but it was strange.
Right. I would like both of them to just say, you know what, that was cool that we did that, and now we should never fight again.
Yes. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I wasn't following MMA like I do now 6 years ago. So I haven't watched all of the banger fights that a lot of people have of Nick Diaz. So I get the Diaz hype. I get the Nick Diaz army. Like I still understand it, and I was still excited to see him fight, but I don't think I was as excited as a lot of the old timers that, have been watching it forever. Now, I will say that I've been talking crap about this fight, and I've been talking crap about both the guys. I really, really like Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler is an absolute animal and a legend of the sport. I just think he is past where he was. And I'm not sure, outside of getting a check, how much he should be fighting still today. I don't know. He seems to still enjoy it, right? He had a 10-week fight camp, which has to be very hard on a 39-year-old's body, right? But, I mean, certainly anybody better than Nick Diaz, which is literally anyone in the division, is going to tear him to pieces, in my opinion, and I don't want to see that happen.
No, I mean, unless he still wants to go out there and get viciously knocked out, he should knock out. That's what I was thinking too. The problem with Nick Diaz is, because he had said before the fight, if he loses, he wants to fight again. But if you lose to that Robbie Lawler, like there's no one else you can fight.
Unless they bring in a Chris Moutinho. I mean,
Yeah, for
like,
real. I mean, which I guess if the UFC wants to do that, that'd be kind of cool. Bring him in a fish, but
yeah.
that's also just.
But that's not what the UFC is about. The UFC is not about fish fights. The UFC is about being the baddest dudes in the world. If you want to have a fish fight, I won't say it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say it. Go to somewhere else. But what's that?
Nothing. Nothing. You can keep her moving.
We have friends at other places, so I don't want to trash talk any organization. But yeah, we know the organization that puts on freak show fights. We know what that is. All right. And we don't need to talk about it anymore. Let's move on to Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy.
Yeah. Chevchenko is just so good.
So good.
It's scary to watch fight because if you watch like a lot of other people, even like the best fighters, you see them throwing out way more feints than she does. And honestly, like even I wouldn't watch her feet. Like she's just like poised and ready to strike at all times, but she's not moving a ton. She's waiting for the other person to make any move. And as soon as Lauren Murphy would make any move, any attempt, she'd be getting stung like 2-3 times. Shevchenko would just be chopping her up. I mean, it was almost gross to watch her work, how outmatched that fight.
And I think too, to the casual eye, as we are, but I like to think that we know a little bit more than we give ourselves credit for. But I was hyping her up because not a lot of the guys that I had been with had seen her fight before, maybe once or twice. But I'm just telling everybody how dominant this woman is. And to be honest, even though she won the rounds convincingly, she really wasn't doing much, right? She was kind of biding her time. And to a person who doesn't understand MMA all that well, it could seem like a close fight. And then just the second that she decides to do literally whatever she wants, it's so obvious that she is like 4 tiers above.
Right. I watched that fight and I looked at the people next to me and like, she shouldn't be allowed to fight women anymore.
I mean, she's only like 32, 31?
Yeah.
She's going to continue to do this for 8 more years. That's what she said.
She loves it. She loves just beating people up. Like it's not like the Amanda Nunes where she's like kind of bored with it and stuff. Mm-hmm. She'd fight all the time and knock people out, get checks.
She may legitimately have 20 title defenses by the time this is done. And I'm going to say this, and it's not right. She might get to the point where there is no one to fight her at all. So they might just keep cycling people to fight her. That it might start a trend of like title fights like on the undercard. And I'm being 100% serious, not because they belong on the undercard, but I think that will give the UFC a new avenue to put a title fight on the free prelims to get people to watch, right? To get people to start watching so that they can see a title fight for free and then be like, this is awesome. And then I'm going to buy the pay-per-view, right? Right now in the state of the UFC, there's absolutely no way that they could put a title fight on the undercard. It just wouldn't be physically possible. But if people get bored enough with Valentina Shevchenko just running through everybody, right, they might as well. I mean, as long as they're still cutting Valentina the checks that they have been, as long as she can still make the amount of money that she's used to making, I see no problem with throwing that as like a super main event on a prelim card. Like and that's nothing against Valentina. That's almost in kudos to Valentina. I just think that she's eventually going to absolutely run out of people to make any interesting matchups. There's one matchup that we all know that everybody wants to see, but I don't know if she wants it right now. She's talked about when the time comes, it will happen. And that's round 3 versus her and Amanda Nunes. I'm not sure Amanda Nunes is seeking out that fight because I legitimately think that she thinks that Valentina is the only person that could take her the entire distance and beat her. So if I'm Amanda Nunes, I'm not sure. If I'm Amanda Nunes, I probably think that there's a few more interesting fights that I can cash in on before I go to probably her last fight ever. You know, if she beats Valentina for a 3rd time, I think that there's nothing left to prove. But I mean, would you legitimately, I mean, you and I probably would, and most hardcore MMA fans probably would, but would you tune in and pay a pay-per-view to watch Valentina Shevchenko fight Lauren Murphy again?
Yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't.
I mean, or how about, I can't remember, Jennifer Maia. I don't care.
Yeah, there's no one in the division.
We've been there, done that with everyone.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. She's untouchable right now. But
and we've got about 8 minutes left before we got to end this episode. But let's talk main event.
Yep. Awesome. Just great fight. It's fun the whole time. At this point, I'd been at the bar for the entire card, so I was texting Nelson some aggressive stuff towards Volkanovski. I was pretty tired of him. Mostly Max Holloway PTSD stuff, but what a great fight. I mean, he's a stud. He's good everywhere. Brian Ortega, though, I mean, you can't say enough about how much heart he has and how hard he fought, and he gave himself a chance. I mean, in the third round, it was scary for Volkanovski.
Yeah, I mean, I will not say the greatest fight ever because I don't think that it had.
It was too one-sided.
It was extremely one-sided. However, the danger that Brian Ortega has off of his back, or the danger that he presents, is absolutely ridiculous. The most dangerous man in MMA on the ground. And I will say that with absolute confidence because a guy like Volkanovski might be the hardest guy to submit of all time. And Ortega almost did it twice within a minute.
Right.
I mean, I not the best fight of all time. Maybe not even top 10 that I've ever seen. However, I will announce round 3 as the greatest round that I have ever seen in MMA.
Definitely the most exciting. I mean, to be getting just pounded and then all of a sudden have the fight almost be over in your favor. I mean, it was insane. And I mean, this is at the same time as Ortega's like having to tell the ref that he's still physically conscious and can fight.
Yeah, and he answered the question wrong about how many fingers Herb Dean was holding up. Which
catch that. Is that true?
Yes, he asked how many fingers he was holding up, and I can't remember if he was holding 2 or 3, and he said the opposite.
Oh
and
my
Herb Dean was like, no, look at me. How many fingers? And then he got it right. But I also heard, and I would have been bummed if this would have happened, but I get where Volkanovski is saying, or where Volkanovski is coming from on this. But Volkanovski was asked in the post-fight presser how he felt about Brian Ortega being helped into the stool after round 3. If you watch the fight, you remember that after Brian Ortega had spent his complete gas tank on trying to finish Volkanovski, and then he got pounded, he legitimately was just like laying on the ground, motionless, and his team had to lift him up into the stool. Now, something that I didn't know that Volkanovski said is that should have been a TKO, that it's in the unified rules that you have to get into the stool under your own power, and that if your team has to help you up, then it's done.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know that. I don't know that to be true. I trust the champ. If he said it with that confidence, it must be true, or he must legitimately think that it's true. But I do think that Ortega could still defend himself. I think he was just gassed. I don't think you should call a TKO via just exhaustion.
Yeah, they never gave him the chance to prove that he couldn't get into the stool. They grabbed him and threw him in the stool. I mean, it wasn't like he was out on the ground.
Yeah.
But great fight. If you didn't watch it, you should go back and watch that fight just for fun.
Yeah.
Let's hit this week really quick.
Yes, absolutely.
A couple on the undercard I'm not going to say anything about or explain our reasoning, but if you want to bet and make some money, Douglas De Andrade that's an easy pick. He's 26-4. He's a stud. He's going to win his fight. Devontae Smith is fighting Jamie Malarkey, who is one lucky knockout. I shouldn't say lucky, but one knockout away from being 0-3 in the UFC. Devontae Smith is a good bet. Casey O'Neill is 7-0 and fighting Antonia Shevchenko. Antonina. Yeah.
Hey, it's season 2, but Cal still can't pronounce names.
But she's not. She gets a lot of hype off of her name, Shevchenko. But Casey O'Neill being 7-0 and having a couple wins in the UFC, that'll be a tough fight for her.
Yeah.
And then the only other 3 I think we should highlight are the last 3. We get Alex Caldwell Oliveira versus Nicole Price, 2 kind of household names. I think Nicole Price is a pretty easy bet in my opinion here. He's only a slight underdog too. It's a pretty close fight on paper.
Nicole Price is an underdog in this fight?
Or no, I'm sorry, not. He's a slight favorite. It's like minus 120. So bare. I mean,
still,
it's almost a pick 'em fight. If you've watched Alex Oliveira's last 2 fights, he's been submitted in the first round. It looks like he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
He's been in some legal trouble. I don't think he handles his finances the best. This is a guy who's fighting to make a living and has household names, so they keep putting him on cards. Nicole Price is a good bet there. And Nicole Price has still been battling with some studs, so I feel good about that win. Yep. And then we got a great co-main in Kevin Holland versus Kyle Dawkis. I think we last saw Kevin Holland a couple months ago.
Yeah, against Brunson.
Yes.
Or was it Vittori? He fought Vittori and Brunson within like 3 weeks of each other.
Yep, and he lost to both of them, and he got taken down a bunch of times in both of them.
Both 2 top 5 guys. I mean,
yeah. The only thing that makes me nervous about this, Kyle Dawkis has never beat anyone like Kevin Holland or anyone really of note. He is 10-2, and I looked in his like last 6 fights, he has attempted at least 7 takedowns. So if you got a guy attempting 7 takedowns on a guy who has proven to us plenty of times that he can get taken down, that worries me a little bit.
mm-hmm.
I still think this is a fight Kevin Holland can get back on track. Hopefully there's some evidence that he has some defense to a takedown, but I guess we'll see. He's always fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then really fun main event, we got Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker.
Whoa. I'm excited for this one. Johnny Walker's always fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. My only issue with this is Santos hits really, really hard and puts people to sleep, as he did the champ.
Yep.
And Johnny Walker gets hit.
Gets hit and goes out. Sometimes multiple times in one fight. Actually, usually multiple times in one fight.
Yep. Yeah, usually. Not even sometimes.
Yeah. For me, I think this is a fun fight, but an easy pick.
Yeah, Santos. I think Santos is. I think it's a pretty easy pick. But honestly, I think you bet Price, O'Neal, Andrade on the undercard, Devontae Smith. Those are some picks that can win you some money, in my opinion. I think those are pretty good matchups.
Exactly. Yeah, the importance of fight doesn't make you more money.
Right.
Playing
Exactly.
the odds.
And then lastly, before we get off here, quick, I heard today that they're going to do Jose Aldo versus Rob Font in December. I would bet my whole entire house on Rob Font winning.
I would too, but that's a fun fight.
Yep.
That's recency bias. That's casual prediction right there. But Rob Font looked fantastic.
One guy's getting older and older.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's probably all we got from Casual Combat this week.
All right, man. I think we covered a lot of bases. I think it was really fun to get back into the swing of things. Just a reminder that I think you'll see it here in our frames. If the video records like it used to, that you will see our social media. We got Twitter, we got Instagram. We've got our website that you can come check us out at casualcombatmma.com and search Casual Combat on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll find us there as well. All right. We will see you back the same time next week. Thank you, Cal. Thank you, viewers. Signing off. See you later.